The biggest myth is the marketers can solve all your problems. Um, Marketing's only, and I think a lot of CEOs come to me. It's like, hey, just tell me how do I message better? I don't, it's like, uh, that's a myth. Like garbage in is equal to garbage out. You give me very basic information. I can't spin that into gold. But that's the biggest myth right now, I'd say. Sorry.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Expert. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where I help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours? Just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Noman Ahmad, and that's as close as I'm going to get with or to pronouncing it correctly. But Noman, he's going to be talking about a few things, including how you focus on teams, both on having or both on focusing on the all stars as well as a great support team. Then also talking a bit about with having technical co-founders and how you can have a product that looking for a solution or the opposite, and not having or need to have the perfect product, but just one that solves a problem and getting that minimally viable product. And then I'm sure we'll dive in and talk a little bit about trends in website designs and platforms and other things along those lines as well. So should be a great discussion. And with that much as introduction, welcome on the podcast.
Hey man, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm excited about this.
Absolutely. Excited to have you back on. And just as a quick reminder to the audience, and so Noman has been on our sister podcast, The Inventive Journey. So if you haven't had a chance to check out his episode there, definitely invite you to do so. But for those in the audience that haven't had a chance to check out that episode yet, take a minute or two and just introduce yourself a bit more to the audience and remind us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, so my name is Noman Ahmad. I run a marketing agency called Mocha Designs. I've been a startup founder a few different times. I shouldn't say couple, it's been a few. Um, Started with a company called Sports Lab, and then another company called Fathom, and been a few other instances here and there. Nothing too exciting as far as outcomes concerned, but that's just part of the journey. This so now I'm actually starting a marketing agency called Mocha Designs. We focus around helping with fractional CMO services for companies. And the thing that we've kind of like developed over a period of time is understanding how to tell stories of companies and founders, and being able to help message that to the world so that people can understand it in a matter of swipes rather than, you know, too many details.
Hmm. No, sounds like a great journey and a helpful summary. So I'm excited now to dive into some of the topics at hand. So one of the topics that we discussed a little bit about before is kind of building out that team. And there are a couple aspects, right? So one is you always have the all stars, and every team does need an all star. If all you have is support team, then you're not going to have that, slam dunks. You're not going to win the game. But vice versa, you're also, if all you have is all stars and you don't have a great support team, one person doesn't make a team. So you do have to have kind of that balance. And so as you're building out or focusing on the team, how do you kind of give both of those different roles, which are both important, the adequate or the necessary support, building them out, making sure you give both of those the focus that are needed in order to be successful?
Yeah, building a team is probably one of the really biggest foundations that kind of I've learned over my many startups that, like it's not just about the rock stars. It's you got to have the solid, like the foundational people on your team too. The ones that are willing to do the nitty-gritty work, the sort of like the hard work, and then, people who can like as well as the ones that are the rock stars, the ones that can uplift the entire team and raise all the boats of the team itself. So it's pretty interesting. I really kind of like, so I'm a huge sports fan, and love basically all team sports makes is phenomenal for me, and especially one of my early found companies I founded was in the team sports space, and the thing that we were working on is developing this platform that helps individuals develop themselves for team sports. So they would be developing their physical strengths, their uh, their like their skill sets and everything. And so, but it was all about like trying to understand how those pieces fit together, and I that's why. From understanding sports, I always kind of look to how do teams fit together, particularly for startups, particularly for companies. It's all about having that melding different people together and making them come together and doing building a company. So that's really, I love understanding that. I love kind of like following along because you can have, like the Chicago Bulls from the mid 90s, right? How they had Dennis Rodman, who was going off to Vegas in the middle of a season for breaks, but you had Michael Jordan on the team, you had Scottie Pippen, and how everyone came together for this common goal of winning a championship. It's with all these different personalities, can as individuals, as I see, as the CMOs, technical people, you gotta like and everyone's got different personalities, everyone's got different styles, everyone's got different ways of doing things that makes them successful. And being able to understand that and coming together. I think one of the main reasons my startups failed or is that I didn't necessarily think that part of it through as carefully as I should have. And now looking back, hindsight's always 2020, and that's one of the main things that I wish I had spent more time on is really team building, understanding how these pieces fit together. And it's not just, oh, I need to go find me a CTO who can go build my MVP, who can go build this, the technical architecture. It's really like, how do they fit? You know, um, and how they can really kind of like add to the team or how they can like push the team to be better and push the entire organization to be better. So I really kind of find that super interesting and relevant. I don't think that there's really a right or wrong answer. It's just like something you have to, it's like more art than science.
Now, kind of, if you're to kind of give maybe people a bit of advice or actionable takeaways, what are some of the maybe the differences when you look at, hey, what are the things that you need to provide to the rock star in order to support them, but or superstar, rock star, whatever you want to call them, but also what are the things that generally, and I understand it's a broad question. There, it's always it depends, which is my least favorite answer, although I give it all the time as an attorney, but because it always every answer I always feel like there's always you can answer almost any question with it depends, but kind of in general, what are some of the things that each of those different roles are needing in order to make sure that they're successful?
So I think like the biggest thing is like appreciation, being able to show appreciation at the end of the day. I mean, it's like it's hard for a lot of people to really kind of come to grasp because it's not a tangible thing. It's like, oh, I'm going to give this person like a 10% bonus or something like that. But it's appreciation. Like the rock stars need appreciation at their ego level, but then everyone else or other people, it's like how do you show appreciation in a way that makes it relevant for them. Maybe it is that 10% bonus that's needed, or maybe it's more like, hey, they just need public recognition. They need to be like brought up in more of a bigger environment, or maybe they need more either on their own team or it's like publicly. Whatever those things are, you have to figure out like what is going to help them push forward to do things that make it in their favor, but they also will be pushed to be better as a teammate. So it's
Hmm.
really it's the depends answer, but it's like that's the only best way I feel like I can answer that is like you got to just understand your team and understand your team. You can take all the Myers-Briggs, surveys, you can but it's mostly like you got to figure this out and having I think a person that is intellectually honest with themselves and honest with their team is a great benefit. You got to just recognize like, hey, this is what I'm good at. This is what my team's good at, and just like learn to press those buttons.
Hmm. Now you
I feel
touched
like you need a
on. Oh, go ahead.
psychologist. Every team needs a good psychologist.
Yeah, I don't know if I was on the team and you asked me to sit down with a psychologist just on a regular basis, I'd probably one I'd be kicked off the team quickly, and two I'd probably go crazy myself. But no, I think there's a lot of truth to that. Now shifting gears just a little bit, but something you touched on a little bit, I think that one of the I don't know I'll call it a problem just because I can't think of a better word, but issues that come up is especially if you have a technical or co-founder or technical, whether it's a C or CEO, CTO or whatever, is that they can drive some really cool innovations from just a technological standpoint, really cool, interesting ideas, concepts, things that are just unique and different. And yet sometimes you get into the problem of you're a product looking for a solution, which is a bit backwards. Is you should have a solving a or looking to solve a problem or providing a solution to a problem via your product. And so sometimes you get a bit backwards. So kind of any thoughts on that and how you go about avoiding that issue or addressing that issue or making sure that it's it doesn't become the downfall of the business.
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. So like I've been blessed with a number of different technical co-founders who were very skilled, great engineers, great, very good technologists. But one of the biggest challenges I had with them is they love to talk technology and dive deep, and like they could spend weeks and weeks and weeks just focusing on technology versus really like having that balance of like understanding the market and understanding how to solve the customer problem. Um, and that's where you gotta like be able to understand like, okay, how do you gotta give your technology people the rein to go dive deep on technology, but then understand like what is going to help bring them back to understand and to like, okay, we got to really focus on customer problems here. We got business problems and how those can be solved, because ultimately if those aren't solved, then no matter how great the technology is, will never win the market, because there's going to be competition that's going to outdo us because they got better resources, better money, better other things that we wouldn't be able to solve.
Now, what do you
It's a
think? And what do you think is that? Maybe I'll say that cause or that driver, in the sense that it. I think high level or esoterically, I don't know what the right word is. You understand. Hey, we got to solve a problem, and yet I see so many businesses that kind of walk down that path of realizing that, and they'll even have that in their statement or whatever that the bit that core competency of the business, or whatever you sit down and everybody gives a here's our one or two statement sentence statement of what the business is. A lot of times it's in there, we're going to solve problems, and yet you still end up walking down that path of getting sidetracked with cool features, cool things, add-ons, or you get kind of the same thing of, hey, we got to keep adding these features in order to differentiate ourselves from the competition, and you get feature overload, which is you continue to creep away from what the core competency is. So how do you how do you set guardrails, or how do you avoid that?
So I think that's where like having, I think early on you gotta like set roles and responsibilities and boundaries, right? And say, look, we're gonna, like ultimately a decision maker has to make the decision of this is good enough and we got to move forward, right? And so having that communication early and being able to say, okay, look, I'm gonna let you go dive deep, but ultimately somebody has to make that decision. And so, sometimes you can make it if you have a two-person co-founder team, you can make it a third person who isn't as emotionally invested. Be that, that voice of reason, right? That's where your board comes into play. Or it could be just a strategic advisor that you bring in, and then you sit there and you talk it through together. And if it's somebody your technical founder can like I hate saying appease by, but you know, like be able to have that respect about like, okay, I understand what this person's saying and it makes sense. Because otherwise the founders are going to constantly clash if if they don't have that third party sometimes.
Yeah.
But it really depends on personalities. Like if you have the mutual respect of each other and you don't need that third party, then you can do it together. But you got to be able to set that roles and responsibility where there's a decision to be made and we got to move forward on it.
No, I like that, and I think that it is again, as I said, you can always answer every question with it depends, but I think setting that structure ahead of time. So hey, how do we define what is this? What is good enough, and how do we, or who's a decision maker, and who kind of figures that out? And that could be the technical guy. Maybe he's the right person. Knows, hey, here's how here's what we need to do to have a minimally functional product, and he's a good role. But vice versa, as you hit on, sometimes the technical guy gets so married to the technology and the features and all that it could do that you need someone that's third party or someone that's that is in that different role. So I think that defining who that makes that decision, what that role is, and kind of how you go about tackling it, figuring that early on can avoid a lot of those issues of, hey, now we're 2 years into this process, we still haven't released a product, and everybody's frustrated because we're running out of the money or running out of time, and we don't have enough runway to really do what we need to do. And so I think going down that route of having that decision maker or either internally or as a third party is a great way to do it. Now,
Mhm.
kind of going along that, help us, because I always hate the word a minimally viable product or MVP, not because I don't understand the concept and agree with it, but because in my mind it usually seems like we're going to put out the crappiest product as quick as we can, that it really is bolted together, and I there is some of that, but you don't want to put out crappy products because to a degree you put it out, people hate it, and you've lost some of that traction. But you don't want to over engineer it, you don't want to hold off on too long. So how do you go about kind of getting that, solving the problem, getting a good minimally viable product, and getting out in the marketplace? And I know that that's a loaded and a broad question, but any thoughts on kind of how you get that right balance?
Yeah, I mean, I think so that's a really interesting question, right? I think the business founders kind of get into they want that spit up and polish finish to the product that right. And they sometimes those personalities don't understand the amount of effort it takes to get to that level of polish.
Hmm.
Kind of, and that's where, like this is where the collaboration between the business side and the technical side is so critical. Is like they don't understand. It's like, oh my God, why isn't this just doesn't fundamentally work? And then technical guy is going to give you like 20 reasons why it doesn't work though. It's like you need, like X amount of time and development to get to that point. So but I think uh there is a fine balance between like getting it out there. I'm always a proponent of getting it, not only getting an MVP out there, but making it paid. I think once if you can make it get paid, then everyone is sort of pot committed at that point,
Hmm.
right? The customer's pot committed. You as a business person, you're staking your connections because more than likely your first few customers are going to be personal connections of yours, right? So you're staking your reputation on the line of, the product doing what it's supposed to be doing and, behaving and, looking as great as it should be. The technical person's also pot committed too, because all of a sudden their reputation is on the line that they've developed this product in a way that, they're getting paid for now. So I think that's sort of like it's a Mexican standoff at that point. Like you make sure everyone is like pointing at each other saying, look, we got to pull this thing together and get this out there. But it's another one of those depends, but I think just as long as you could get to the point where somebody's willing to pay, then you got a good enough MVP. But if you got something that where somebody's not willing to pay, then you don't have an MVP.
Yeah, and I'm a believer kind of to that point is if it's to the point you say, hey, we're providing enough value that people should pay for this, and yes, we can build it out, make it better, and at some point, I'm always, I like even if you put it out, whether it's a beta product or a trial period or whatever, where people are saying, hey, this is an exclusive. Got to understand this is not the final finished product that is going to be solving every problem, but we're going to offer you a great deal where you still have to pay. And I think that getting people to pay for it, but maybe, hey, we're going to give it to you at a discounted rate for this
Right.
period where it is going to be because it's not all, or it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, or it's not as pretty as it's going to be. But if you feel that this is valuable, pay for it. And then you can get that feedback, because I think a lot of times when you make people pay for it, they now feel like they're paying for something. It should function, and they're going to be a lot more judicious, typically, at least my experience with, hey, we're going to give you that feedback. If it's not working, we're going to let you know, because we feel like we're paid for this. And it kind of has that better effect than sometimes if you just say, hey, we're going to give it to you completely for free. Then you always kind of have that pull and tug of, well, now we're not making any money off them, but they're telling us that they have these problems or they want to have all these demands. But also on their side, they may just say, well, we're not paying for it, we're not going to give it much attention. Well, yeah, we'll give it a little bit of lip service. So I think that getting it to, defining what is that point as to what people are willing to pay for, is it to the point where if people will pay for it, and then putting it out there, and you'll either learn people won't pay for it because it's not far along as you are,
Right.
or you'll say, hey, we've got good enough, people are paying for this, and now let's keep get the marketing team, get the people out there promoting it and getting it going, and then continue to work on it. So I love that, as kind of get it to the point that's getting people are going to pay, and then get it out there.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Now I'm going to shift gears just because I always love it's a topic that I always find interesting and I love to do it. We're going to talk just a little bit before we wrap up, just on some of the trends, because one of the things that you do as a fractional CMO, and that is kind of website design, platform design. What are the trends? What should people be thinking about? Where are things headed? And all of those things. And I think it is, especially the more and more we become a digital world, which is only increasing, even for what used to be the mom and pop shops, even the local place, half the time you still look to see if they have a website. And even if it's a local restaurant, hey, can I order online? Can I see what their costs are, what their menus are? And yet almost everybody is being forced to have a digital presence. And then some people certainly a bigger presence than others. But there's always those trends and things that are going up and down and popular. And whether it used to be a GIF, and now GIFs are out of vogue, or back in vogue, or same thing. And I read an article about the footers of the website are becoming more important again, or people are paying more attention. And there's a lot of trends going on. So I'm with that as a very broad question, but in a whole bunch of, or a very packed question, any kind of initial thoughts? What are some of the trends or things that you're seeing, or whether it's the platforms to build on or the designs you should be avoiding or thinking of, or anything of that? Turn it over to you kind of to give us a bit of a trends update.
Yeah, I think from a okay, so I'll break this down on a few fronts. So like there's definitely this trend, like I think there's still a lot of legacy businesses out there that are still going through digital transformation. And it's like it's still not complete yet. So digital transformation is still really high on the radar for people. And it's continuing to grow. So that's great, right? So digital transformations, like I was just talking to a company last week who is a grower. They do organic produce for, like they produce it. They've been a mom and pop business for the past 50 plus years. They've never had a website. They need one. Okay, great. So but the other part of that trend is like it's the structuring of information and content, and making it where people can get the information they need very quickly. That is still a laggard. You have these beautiful websites, people invest like tens of thousands of dollars in it, yet you can't get the restaurants missing the menu on their site, or
Mm.
they have the order button, or they have DoorDash or whatever delivery service, but they don't have it where you can easily see what the menu is. You can see what they'll say the wait time is for the restaurant, just to get information really quickly and easily. So that's stuff that is like the basics of being able to for digitally transformation transformation of different businesses.
Mm,
From a design aesthetic perspective, I mean that there, I think things are still all still, like there's changes and evolutions happening from like big images to highly high amount of animations and being pixel perfect. There's still a lot of things happening in that space. That kind of like that's like like a clothing style. It's some the old becomes new and new becomes old, and everything kind of continues to evolve that way. Uh,
right.
but what we're seeing is AI is definitely becoming a bigger impact. So now with AI bots, you can have a self-service bot on your site, make things, where you can ask questions, just pre-sales questions.
Mm,
That is becoming more and more popular, and more needed, right? People don't, like even in B2B marketing and sales, people don't want to be bothered. They don't want to go to a demo immediately. They just want to learn a little bit about your product. They want to be able to ask questions. They want to be able to see it, feel it for themselves, and, like click around, see if it fits their needs before they invest either, tens of thousands of dollars or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the buyer behavior is more self-service, and being able to set up websites so that people can kind of look and feel themselves is more and more important than ever before.
So now I agree with that, and I'll push back just a little bit, or ask a follow up question to that, which is, it's kind of, and this is whether it's AI or not, but I think AI is, kind of, or bringing the question back around, which is, I always feel like whenever I have, I don't love, I hate. Okay, let me back up. One of the things that I'm looking at getting is my truck. I like to drive a truck. I'm in Utah. I like to go on off road, and so truck is getting older, worn out, and I'm looking very initially at getting a new truck.
Mhm.
And so with that, I just like to, sometimes I'm just in the mood. I just want to go and look at the trucks. I don't want to be bothered with the salesperson. I just want to take a look, kind of get a feel for what I like, what are the models and the features they offer. And then I want to talk with the salesperson at that point. And it usually feels like the sales process is just the opposite, where when I don't want to talk with them, they are hounding me, and I have to basically almost be on the verge of being rude or saying, I just want to look right now. I'm not ready to chat. And yet then vice versa, when I am ready to chat and I am ready to talk with them, they are looking for that person that is, they're talking with that person that is over there and has, or is just barely looking, and I can't get that. So, how do you, is there a way maybe to address that with AI, or kind of any thoughts on finding that balance digitally or online of giving them the, hey, I do, when I want to talk with a person, I want to talk with a person, not AI, because AI still has limitations, at least for now. But
Right.
by
Yeah.
vice versa, getting that kind of initial demo or some of that information so that you're not having to talk with a real person when you just want to get that initial information. How do you
Right.
balance that?
So, I mean, that's where like I think this is where, like having businesses understand their funnel is super critical, right? People are just looking, if you're at the top of the funnel, you're just kind of like looking, browsing, you're just looking for your information gathering at that point. Like that's where you don't need to be hounding the prospect to get on a demo call or to, hey, come in. Especially dealerships are really bad about this. They'll like come in and we'll give you a test drive, or like they want to like give you a call before you're in ready, right? You're just in the that early stage of your funnel. Like being able to structure the website and marketing information so that you can get that top of your funnel information that you need
Mm,
for exploratory is critical. And then, this is where you can use AI bots, you can use a lot of content on your website that can give you that information that you need for that early part of your funnel.
mm,
Once they're further down the funnel, this is where it's not necessarily AI, but it's somebody, a person, a BDR, a business development rep can give you a call and check in with you and say, or send you an email and check in with you and say, hey, I saw that, like, were you able to get as much information you needed to? Is there something else you need? Happy to help you get to that, right? Understanding your funnel and the stages of the buyer's journey is critical. And that's a lot of businesses don't get that right. A lot of dealerships don't get that right.
So now, just one follow, and I know we're already wrapping towards the end of the episode, so we'll have to have you back on and maybe have a follow-on conversation, or we'll have to have you on our newly launched platform, Inventive Firesides, and have a live webinar to have a further Q&A. But one follow-up question, other than my shameless self-promoting, which is, are AI bots or AI, and I know it's evolving and they're getting smarter and there's more features and rolling out, but are they at the point where they can be trained or to a degree tell, hey, this is a point where I can provide some initial information or get them earlier on in the funnel and then turn it over to a human? Can you set it up that way, or is it that smart, or is it still coming along and it needs more human monitoring or interaction? Or kind of, how do you, because you say top of funnel, have an AI bot, AI chat conversation, or bots get a bad name because everybody hates bots because it feels like it doesn't have that human feel. But are they smart enough to kind of gauge that, or is that still coming along? Or I'm just more curious than anything.
Yeah, no, they're still coming along. It's not quite there yet. You still got to hit the, all right, I need to talk to a support person. I need to talk to a support person. Not, I don't need to talk. I don't want to chat with you. I don't want you to just sit here and ask me a bunch of questions. I need to like, they're still not there yet. But they will be. I think that's sort of like the evolution. And, just you think about, AI was long, I think became famous last year, even though it's been around for a while now, right? It's just because of Chat GPT, it just became famous last year. But the evolution we've seen in the past year dictate, shows that it's the trajectory of it is exponential right now. So the changes and improvements is happening so fast. It's giving, like it's able to analyze data and give you like better recommendations on things much faster. So I'd say that the trajectory of that, of getting to the point of understanding the customer journey, it's not there yet today, but probably in the next 6 months to 12 months, it will be there, or at
Interesting.
least get closer to being there.
Yeah, and I love it. And I say it's interesting, and it's a side conversation I'll have to have with you, or maybe I'll do a podcast or a webinar or something. But we utilize AI quite a bit, and it's more for an automated marketing tool, which interacts a lot on the social media platforms. But it's been interesting as we've utilized the tool, just how it's evolved, and or some of the things that we've learned, and how to make it more personalized and customized, and also the limitations and where you can pass that off and what you can do. And it's interesting, that evolution. So sounds like it's reflected a lot on along a lot of different lines. So definitely is a fun one to keep an eye on. So, well, we could chat for, I'm sure, a much longer period of time, and I would enjoy it, and I would pick your brain, and then all the audience would fall asleep because they're saying this episode is way too long. So we'll wrap it up at least for today, but we'll have to have maybe some follow-on conversations or a discussion sometime in the future. But as we do wrap up this episode, I always do like to wrap up with the same question. So I'll ask you that now, which is, within your industry, what is the biggest myth and why is it wrong?
The biggest myth is the marketers could solve all your problems. Marketing's only, and I think a lot of CEOs come to me, it's like, hey, just tell me how do I message better? I don't, it's like, uh, that's a myth. Like garbage in is equal to garbage out. You give me very basic information. I can't spin that into gold. But that's the biggest myth right now, I'd say. Sorry.
Well, as soon as you solve it, so that does solve all the problems, I'll be the first one on board to raise my hand and sign up for that service. But no, I get that that's definitely a myth, and it's kind of the, on the flip side, it seems like the myth is, if when everything's going good, the marketers get the credit, and then when everything's going bad, the marketers get all the blame, or the first ones to be let go. And yet there's, on both sides, that myth, it kind of cuts both ways, and yet it's a myth on all fronts. And so I like that you dispel that myth and hit on it. So that's awesome. Okay, awesome. Well, now as we do wrap up, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Yeah, like, hey, I'm right now, LinkedIn is just like flooded right now with a lot of people. Just reach out to me via email, like noman@mochadesigns.co. Just reach out, say hi. I'd love to hear from people. So, whether it's for just having a conversation, a cup of coffee, or you need a next project done. Happy to talk.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, make a new connection, support a great business. If nothing else, make a new best friend. So, with that, thank you again, Noman, for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you other listeners who are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you want to be a guest on the podcast or our new webinar series, you can go to inventiveunicorn.com, apply to be on either end or both. And along those lines, to help us reach even more startups and small businesses, to help them along their journey to success, make sure to leave us or click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Definitely helps us to reach and help those startups and small businesses along their way. And along that note, if along your journey you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. We're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Noman, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks, David.